How are you? I'm
Oh,
recording.
okay. We're recording. Wowzers.
Yes, yes.
Okay, dokes.
Organized. Super
So
duper.
welcome everyone. Welcome Andrea. Welcome anyone who's here, and then also those of you who are watching the recording. We have quite a few interesting questions.
We
this
do,
time.
yes. So it should be a good one. Have you had anything to report this week from your dog training, Barbara? Useful to share?
Well, I was really chuffed. I've taken 5 kids to the agility field just by himself, no other dogs. Twice, 3 times, 3 times this
Yeah.
week. Had really lovely sessions. I was a little worried that the little guy would just leave me and be off doing other fun things. It's a big environment, and so on. But no, he was really good. And all our skills that we've been practicing at home in the garage, they came together at the field with the
Awesome.
equipment. It just really brings it home how doing the layers, just putting in, the individual layers, and then when you need them, it all comes together.
That's it though, and it's the same
Yeah.
with all these kind of training things. If you try and jump in at the level that you feel you want to be jumping in, it's never going to stick. You've got
Yeah.
to start
And
down here somewhere, haven't you?
and also the value of practicing things in a distraction-free environment first, right?
Massively
So
important.
then when you go somewhere where it's more distracting, you can still set up your dog. So what I like to do is I have a kennel there. So he goes into his crate. And then because we do crate games, you have a whole sort of release sequence. So already he's got something that he's super familiar with. And then we release from the kennel, and then we do a game, a training game, of course, then I can see how engaged is he and so on. And then another thing also that I've learned, because every dog is different, and we really have to take, when we talk about reinforcement, it's the dog that tells us what is the reinforcement. So if, even though he's
So true. Absolutely spot on.
yeah, he's a very energetic little border collie, and he loves his toys. He does, but he really likes food, and as well. And it really, for him, it works really well to just, to work as much as I can. I use food, and then I do games with the toy in between, and then we work on. And that means he's really engaged, but he's also much more thoughtful. And so I've learned, his dad taught me lessons.
That
Anyway,
sounds so
we had fun.
cool. So much fun. Sounds
Yeah.
really good. Right. Shall we get
Yeah,
started with the first question?
let's. But I just see in the comments that LG shared that she just returned from a lovely off-leash hike. Great mobile.
Fabulous. Fabulous. I've been doing lots of hiking with mine over the last few weeks. It's been so much fun, even if it's been a bit muddy, but it's been
Okay.
fun. Okay. Should we start with Anne?
Yeah, do you want me to read it to you?
Well, you may do if you like. Absolutely.
Here we go. So Anne shared, more advice, please. As a newbie dog owner, I haven't much experience. My lovely puppy at 7 months has just decided to bite at most things. People passing the window, dogs passing by, reflections in the windows, etc. What do I do? Which of the videos would you recommend I watch? Oh, that's a great question,
It's a
Anne.
brilliant question. And it's
Mm.
one that you come across so often. You get that dog that suddenly gets to 6, 7, 8 months old, and suddenly you're tearing your hair out. All these unwanted behaviors suddenly appear. And the reason is your dog is now an adolescent. So lots of stuff happens around adolescence with our dogs. It's exactly the same as it does with our human children. There's hormones everywhere. As they kind of, if you think your dog has got to the stage where they're starting to think to themselves, okay, am I going to stay in my lovely comfy family home, or am I going to go out there, find myself a lady or a gentleman friend and start my own family? And even though, that's something that we've kind of taken away from them over the last goodness knows how many thousands of years, That's kind of what the hormones are telling them. And you also end up with this a bit of a fear period around this age as well. So all those, the things that they took in their stride previously, suddenly like, yikes, it's really, really scary. So there's a lot going on for your dog at this point. They become more vigilant than normal. They can become less confident because they're going through this fear period. And they can become less into you and more into the stuff that's over there, because that's where their hormones are kind of dragging them. So that's why it's happening. So it's nothing that, you've done or anything like that. And the biggest bit of advice that I can give to people who have an adolescent dog, because, if you go to like any of the shelters or anything, that the age at which most dogs are given up by their families is between that sort of 6 months to sort of 2.5, 3, when they're going through that adolescent phase, because it is super challenging. And again, it's like with your human adolescence, pick your battles. Think about, okay, what is important at this stage? So I would be focusing number one, first and foremost, on that relationship that you've got with your dog. That has to be strong to, so you can move through together. And because they're going to be pushing all your buttons, and doing all these things that you're not going to be liking, it can be a challenge. But have that in mind, that keeping that relationship really strong, so that you've still got a dog that trusts you, you've still got the same feelings for your dog, all those kind of things. That's going to stand you in really good stead. The other thing that I would really be focusing on is helping your dog with their confidence. So, thinking about the confidence building games, giving them positive experience with novel new things that they haven't necessarily come across before, all those kind of things, and protecting them very much from bad experiences. So if you've got the dogs barking at the window, for example, your dog's finding that super stressful, we'd always say use management, try to block the visual access to what it is out there. But it's almost more important when you've got this adolescent dog, because you really need to guard that optimism for them, and to help them to be able to sort of bring themselves away from the out there stuff, which is super duper exciting, and remind them that the in here stuff is quite good as well, and the being with the people bit is quite good as well. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on with your dog. It's really normal. It's I think some dogs will, it's again like children, some dogs will sail through it, be absolutely fine, not a problem. Others will challenge you, hugely, and you have to just keep reminding yourself that if we work well with it, we keep the relationship going, things will get better. So that would be my advice to you. I'm trying to think if there were any specific of the interviews that would be helpful with an adolescent. And to be honest, I think all of them are relevant. I'd probably look at I'd look at Kim Brophy for that real understanding of how your dog ticks. I would also be, do you know what? I would also look at Leanne's video, about how your dogs can test you and how you come back from that. She had some really nice, and Laura as well, Laura Malbec, she had some really nice, ways of shifting your own mindset so you can keep that relationship really strong. I think those would be great. Andrew Hale for this sort of thing he's always a legend. And yeah, so I think that's what I'd say. What do you think, Barbara?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I hadn't thought of. Yeah, no, totally. There are follow-up questions here. So Andrea says, or wants to know, I've heard adolescence my last 3 years. Is that accurate?
Can be, can't it? It depends on the breed of the dog to an extent and their genetics.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as we know, individual differences are far greater than breed differences. But as a kind of a generalization, let's say you've got a golden retriever, that's going to mature far later than if you've got a border collie. For instance,
Mm.
retrievers are real late bloomers.
Mm. Interesting. That's exactly what LG says here. Bodhi is a late bloomer. He didn't hit that adolescent fear stage until he was 16 months, and with a lot of support, is just now coming
Yeah.
out of it at 22 months.
And that's
Mm.
the thing, isn't it? Is it's there's so much individual differences, and
Mm.
but yeah, it absolutely it can last. Some dogs it can go a little bit further, but we try not to think about that too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Andrew's just said that that she's got a lab, and that's a classic example of the type of breed that might be a bit of a later bloomer. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So where are the border collies on that scale?
They're usually, from what I understand, fairly kind of normal, sort of two and a bit. So still got a bit to go.
yeah, no. And as you said, each dog is different. We can't go too,
Totally, you can't
we can't
generalize
get stuck
completely,
up
can
on
you?
stuff. But because I mean, my Falcon is now 15, 16 months old, and there were definitely times around 8 months to a year when it was really, really hectic. Hi, Anne.
Oh,
She
we're
says,
just on
I
your
might have missed you.
question.
No, we're not totally done with it.
Yeah,
So you can, and it's all right at the beginning, so you can watch
yeah,
what
you'll
you've
get the
missed
gist.
recording. But what I wanted to share was that I completely feel you, Anne. This barking at everything, noises from the outside, things through the window. That was a biggie. And um a really important part is to like prevent it, like what Julia said at the end there, right? So set the dog up for success, use management wisely, keep a journal when what spooks him, when what does the dog bark at, because you don't want these things to become normal, right? This is just what I do when I see stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy to report. So we had a phase of I can't not bark at the vacuum cleaner, right? So
Mhm.
from typical puppy, then we overcome it at the puppy stage, and then suddenly it comes back again. Barking at things outside, barking at noises from the street, neighbor dogs barking. It's quite in that sense, quite a noisy neighborhood where I live in. It was really, really bad, and it can still sometimes be. And then, sometimes it's individual dogs, sometimes it's also what has happened before. So, just journaling really, really helps, and setting the dog up that way. And not, and laugh a lot. Laugh
Yes.
at the dog. Like Julia said, pick your battles, but maintain your sense of humor and just laugh at them. Is that scary? Oh my goodness, so bogeyman, whatever, just laugh at them. And then sometimes we can let them figure things out. And we talk somewhere, wasn't there an interview where we talked about dogs getting a little can get addicted to, I forget where that was, but anyway, so yeah, when you're out and about, because Anne just asked, what do I do? Tell her to be quiet. I wouldn't tell her to be quiet because she's not doing anything wrong. She's just expressing how she feels,
Yeah.
right? Scared, excited, what's going on, unsure, frustrated, whatever it might be. So reassure her, yes. I wouldn't necessarily pick her up. I would keep her at a distance where your dog can respond to you, and then just talk. Ooh, is that a scary thing? And then sometimes we can let them figure things out. Like, was it in last life that I shared that thing about the funny stick
Yeah.
that I encountered with Falky? So that was safe. That stick wasn't moving. He was just barking at an odd object. So there we can keep our in a cafe or a restaurant. Well, I would avoid that.
Yeah,
So
that's
in a cafe,
information, isn't it? That it's not
yeah,
necessarily the best environment for
yeah.
your
So
dog at this
keep it,
stage.
yeah. So you can go, but prep ahead take something, a good chew or a bone or something that really engages her long enough, and only stay as long as that. So you might just sit down, get a coffee to go, stay there for 10 minutes and then leave again, so that it is 100% successful thing. Don't go for a date with your girlfriend and bring the puppy along and expect them to wait until you're done exchanging all the news. Right? Make it about the dog. So yeah, that's what I would add. But you want to definitely go back to the recording, because all the fun that,
There was so much
the
wisdom.
explanation, or you don't want to miss the explanation why it's happening. Yeah.
Pick your battles is the
key part, and it's just absolutely natural. There's a lot going on for them.
Absolutely. Right. Shall I read out Bernadette's question?
Okay.
So Bernadette has a wonderful 3-year-old Labradoodle. She says he's become quite reactive to various things at the window, and it's spilled over into reactivity when he's walking on the lead now too. We've recently put up some window film, and it's made the world of difference to everyone. When would you expect to see an improvement in his reactivity when he's walking on the lead after this change at home? And she also has asked, when he's in another location and there's no window film, how would you go about working on reactivity in those situations? So, for example, at someone else's house.
Okay. So if I understand this correctly, then the leash reactivity is a new thing. But so that's good. So we haven't. So number one is we definitely want to avoid rehearsals for 2 reasons. Number one, the more the dog practices the thing, the more normal it becomes for them. Number two, those kind of reactions are always stress. Stress is not good. Right? Stress is never good. Stress is not good for the health of the animal. Stress is not good for their little brains. Stress is not good for you, right? So we want to prevent it as, ideally completely, right? No reactive outbursts. And that's really super, super important. We need them to feel safe and find out what their normal is. I think it was in Anushri's interview where she talked about new neural pathways. Management is so important, because we need to make sure that those little pathways, that the dog's now found, okay, I see this, I bark, makes me feel better. It's stressful, but in the moment it makes me feel better. The dogs always get something out of it. If they keep doing a thing, if a behavior sticks, right, they're getting something out of it. So you don't want that to become a neural highway, right? This is where all the traffic goes. We want to close that road off, and we want to build different habits and different neural pathways. And that happens in the body, physically, biologically in the body. And in order to facilitate that, we have to use management. We have to prevent the rehearsals. We cannot stress this often enough, because we get a lot of people keep asking, but the dog needs to learn. The dog needs to learn. If I keep preventing it, am I not avoiding the issue? No. You keep the dog feeling safe, and then reaching a point where they can learn different things. Number one. Other thing that came to my mind when I read this is that both leash reactivity and window reactivity are barrier frustration behaviors. Right? Dog sees something, wants to get there, can't, and then expresses that frustration. So a lot of it is that. So what you do, so you've seen good progress with the window covering, and definitely less stress for the family, because I mean, let's face it, a dog that goes off barking. I mean, I've got one. I mean, Falk is getting better now, but it's kind of grates on your nerves. So that's good. And you want to do a similar thing on the leash. What that means is that you stay away from whatever it is that triggers the leash reactivity. So if it's dogs, then you need to walk somewhere where there either aren't any dogs or where you can walk so far away from the other dogs that they're not an issue for yours, right? For the reasons we talked about earlier. And then your question was, number one was, when would you expect to see an improvement in his reactivity when he is walking on the lead after this change at home? So first of all, I don't know. It's always, we cannot put a timeline on a dog. You know, it's an individual dog. It's how severe this is, how frustrated or fearful the dog is. Don't know how long that is. But the window film at home isn't the only thing. So stuff that Julia spoke about earlier, like confidence building, are very important. Not exposing him to triggers while you walk is really important. And there was something else, but it's now fallen out of my head. Should take notes. So while they are related, because it's barrier frustration, your number one thing is not to put the dog in the situation, and then to work on confidence building with them, and to work on training exercises that allow you when you're walking, you know, skills for your dog and skills for you. So to really practice. So what I would do a lot, or what I do a lot with my young dogs, is actually practice the leash walking at home so that they really enjoy walking on the leash with me. And then be really vigilant about, vigilant is a horrible word because that's the thing we get so tired of, but we need to learn to be able to scan the environment so we can keep a reasonable distance from anything that may create that kind of reaction, right? And then what I would do with a dog on a leash outside is you want to have a few games under your belt. You want to structure your walks a little bit. So opportunity to sniff, walking with you, just going along, and you walk nicely with me. Whatever games you play at home to build leash skills, but play them also on your walks. And then easy things like hand targets, like eat a cookie here, eat a cookie there, you know, just stuff that keeps his engagement. I mean, there is an endless, you know, list of games, one more complex at the next. And I don't want to we can't overwhelm you here, but just anything that builds a little engagement and fun and focus for you when you're out and about will help. But the number one thing is to keep him away from the triggers.
Absolutely. Sort of linked to what you've said, I think, you know, the thing with walking at home and rehearsing the walks at home, I think it's kind of got a bit of a dual purpose, because not only is it really practicing that walking behavior, but it's also helping with that prediction chain that you've got when you're getting your dog ready for a walk. Because when we start getting ready for a walk, we get the harness out, we get the lead out, we put our shoes on, we put our coat on, we pick our keys up. The dog's going for a walk, we're going for a walk, we're going for a walk. You've kind of almost lost them before you've left the house. You know, their mental state has changed because of that prediction. Whereas if getting the lead and the harness out isn't really a big deal, because you're just doing a little bit at home, or if you put your shoes on and you take them off again and it's not a big deal, that can really, really help the dog be more relaxed right at the very start of the walk. So I think that's a really excellent point. The other couple of things that I quite like to do is, for dogs like yours, Bernadette, is work on some things that you can do around the front door, so, or the back door, wherever you go. So just inside and just outside. So you just super simple stuff, like Barbara was saying, with the simple games. Do a little bit inside, then do a little bit outside, then let's go back inside again. And again, working on that sort of transition from the inside to the outside, I think that could be handy. And it's quite nice with the simple techniques that she was talking about on your walk, to sort of rethink your walk as a almost like a little training event. Just go out for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that, and keep your dog busy the whole time and away from those triggers. She's absolutely right, that's top priority. But keeping your dog busy the whole time, just for very short amounts of time, that can help too.
No, absolutely. Just looking at it's a Labradoodle.
Yeah,
They can be quite energetic.
they get often very full of beans, absolutely.
And
Yeah,
biggish, so I can totally see how that
totally, I totally get it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I see there's a second part to the question about the other location, no window film.
Mm.
Um, so again, um, th- it's a lot of it is preparation and getting in ahead of time. So if the dog stays with a family member, you know the layout of that home, you know where that is, you can go visit with your dog. I know it's totally different. Our dogs are totally different when we're with them, and it's like kids, right? Or when we're not with them. I know, but what I mean is you know what the place is like, and then you can make recommendations. I know we can't expect all our friends to put window film on their windows.
Wouldn't it be great if we could?
But first of all, sometimes behavior is totally contextual and doesn't actually happen in another environment.
True.
So I'm not saying test it, because we don't want to run a chance of the dog having a meltdown, but I would take into consideration where you're sending the dog and what the layout is. I mean, if it's a glass house, it might not be the best place for your dog. Nobody has a glass house, but you know what I mean. um and then and then help, let them know what the dog requires, and also that they really understand how important it is for the dog to get downtime away from everything. And if your dog is not crate trained, that's always great. If you have a dog that's used to a crate, then you can take their little home away from home and put it in the strange scenario. But if that's not the case, then maybe they can set up a nice sheltered corner somewhere with the dog bed, with the things that the dog brings from home, and create visual barriers, that aren't permanent, like the window film, but with blankets over a chair or something like that,
Mm.
you
I
know.
mean, it might come to having to, close the curtains, which nobody wants to do. But
Yeah, but if it's just for the few days that the dog's
yeah,
over,
yeah. Or
you
think about
explain,
having the dog in a different room where they don't get the visual access, that kind of thing.
yeah, where there won't be dogs walking past.
Mm.
Yeah,
But it is a tough one.
yeah. But I mean, it is not impossible if you know what we need. And then, as we said right in the beginning, um, you know, sometimes management can, resolve an issue.
Mm.
And and suddenly we realize, oh, my dog isn't actually saying anything anymore when somebody goes by. But we can't rely on that, so we want to do some training too. And what we can do there is work with the things that set them up. So I'm assuming in your case it's other dogs. So once we've got a dog that is calm most, the other time of the day, so we can take them somewhere where they can see dogs but at a safe distance. Or maybe you start with just dogs on the TV, and then practice little engagement games with them at home, or at a safe enough distance that your dog is able to engage with you and take treats and all those things. Definitely not when it's too close. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense to
So
me.
yeah, so we need to work on them getting used to those things, but we want to do that. We want to put the management in place. First, we want everybody to settle down, and then we want to work on this, but not like pushing it, needle in the eye kind of a thing, you know, scrape that, scrap. No, just really gently and always, always, always at a safe enough distance, so that, you know, the dog doesn't have a meltdown and can engage with us, because ultimately what we want is those other things to be like, oh man, whatever.
Yeah,
No.
exactly. None of your business. Cool.
Okay, let me
Where are we up to?
oh, but I think we answered that one. There was a third part to the question about the dog having gotten into another room and then having had an explosive reaction. And then the question was, could lack of exposure make things worse?
No.
Oh, I think we answered.
It'll be something else. Mm.
Okay, here's Christine's about Bear. So
Yes.
yeah, so this was a week ago. Christine asked, my family are attending a wedding next weekend, and our dog Bear is spending 3 days at my mum's. She has two dogs, a Westie who can sometimes be reactive, but that Bear has always got on well with, and a Labrador that Bear has reacted to a couple of times. We don't see them very often as they're not local to us. The last time was Christmas. Yesterday, I took Bear out and he reacted to every single dog we saw in the park, which he's never done before. He's always on a long line now, so I can remove him from difficult situations. I'm feeling increasingly anxious about the upcoming wedding, as I'm concerned things will escalate when I'm not around and someone will get hurt. Do I suggest to my mum that Bear is always separated from her dogs while he's staying there, or will that add to his frustration? I can't work out if I'm adding to the issues with my anxiety, and if I was more relaxed, he would cope better, or if I'm right not to trust how he might react right now.
I do feel for you. I really do. It's such a hard situation, isn't it?
Mm.
Because and I totally get why you're anxious. Now, the dogs have met before, and what we said, but Bear is fine with the Westie. The Labrador Bear has reacted to a couple of times. Now, what we don't know is what the situation was when they've met before. Has it been in the house? Has it been on walks? What does that look like? Because knowing that context is quite important. Did Bear react to the Labrador when the Labrador was in his home, or when they were on neutral territory, or when they were in the Labrador's home? And you can see how those dynamics can look quite different. Now, yes, Barbara, I do butt
Can
in.
I just inject one thing? I think even more important is we don't know what else went into the bucket on
Yeah,
those days.
100%.
And we talked about trigger stacking, and the bucket that might overflow in the reactivity reset. So it's definitely worthwhile having a look. Juliet has a lovely little number with a whiteboard. So definitely a good one to look at, because we tend to focus on he's reacted to that dog. And of course, that dog is now part of that, that picture, especially when it happened a couple of times. But I'm sure there are other things that play in. It's not just the dog.
Now, I mean, I think for this one, I mean, I can talk about what I would do in that scenario, but of course, I know my dogs much better. So, for example, if I was taking my dogs to stay with somebody else and their dogs were pretty cool, and they'd got on before, I know they'd almost certainly be fine. On the other hand, if another dog came to my house, it would be a totally different story, and I would keep them separated. Okay, because I know, how my dogs would feel about that. Um, so there's that kind of thing to colour it. I think the other thing is you're going away, which is going to create another dynamic altogether. And you're never quite sure, really, are you, what exactly the reaction is going to be. So I would be taking it quite slowly. I would ensure that, initially, I'd make sure that Bear could have some time in at least some part of the house just to settle and decompress a little bit when he got there, and without the other dogs there, necessarily. I might use a barrier initially as well, and two sides of the door, see what happens. You can get barrier frustration at that point, of course you can, but we're talking about that versus safety, really, aren't we? I would definitely spend some time with the 3 dogs on neutral territory before taking, I should have said that first, really, before taking them back to the house. See how that's going. If you can, do something like hire a safe field or something where they can all have a bit of a bit of time together, and you could see how they are together and how those interactions are going. I'd be really closely supervising any time that they did have together, and I'd be watching their body language like a hawk. It might be that it's going to be best to have them separated for an amount of time. But then again, it also may well be that they'll be absolutely fine and have a blast and nothing will go wrong at all. So yeah, I think I would have some caution all the time, just because we know that, if things are going to go wrong, it's kind of, I don't want to be really negative. I feel like I'm sounding really negative, and that's not what I'm meaning to do. I'm more trying to say, because I think partly because of the experience, own experiences that I've had, I certainly wouldn't just chuck dogs together in one of their home and expect it all to be fine. I would have some precautions, and I would be, checking that body language, seeing how they're feeling, how are they together. I would make sure that Bear in particular has a whole heap of downtime. I would do some, neutral territory stuff, see how they are together first. That's got to happen first. And I know that, if you've got time, do that together with your mum before you go off to the wedding, if you can possibly do that, or work up to it a few days beforehand, if you can. I know you're a little bit, you're not necessarily around the corner, but if there's a possibility the day before or something to pop over when there's 2 of you there, so you can see, and that, can reassure you or get you, or have it in your head, okay, we need to come up with a plan of action, and do it this way. So I think that's what I do. I probably err on the side of caution generally. What are you thinking, Barbara?
No, I I totally agree. So when Christine posted this, it was 2 weeks ago, and I wrongly assumed that it was the next weekend after that. So pretty much like now, right? So only a few more days before the weekend. And so I advise pretty much what you just said. I would not feel comfortable going away, leaving my dogs with somebody else or my mum, or and other dogs, and not sure how they get on. So I would stock up on enrichment, lots of long-lasting chews, and tell the caretaker, look, it's fine. The dog can sleep. A weekend full of boring sleep and lots of chewing and solitary outings
Yeah.
is not the worst thing for a dog at all, and that way they will be safe. And then for the longer term picture, everybody gets used to the thing. So Bear can get used to that environment without any stress. The other dogs get used to the sense of another dog being in their space without actually interacting with the dog. So I think in the short term, that would be my go-to. Just keep them all safe, just don't take any risks. And then, gradually do exactly what you just described. Get a field or in the garden, somewhere outside, and I would let one dog at a time interact, not the other two and one dog.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, and really short and supervised and like I said, watching them like a hawk, and and really just very short interactions, and then calling them, to each other. They get cookies, and then a lot of you sit here and you sit here, you get a cookie, you get a cookie, everybody's on their dog bed, you get a cookie, you get a cookie, you get a cookie, and that can all be done initially with barriers, so nothing can happen, should somebody not stay where they're supposed to, and then short, and then everybody gets put away again and is safe. I wouldn't take it,
It's just not worth it, is it?
yeah, it's just not worth it. And although in my case nobody got hurt, but I just saw what can go awry just recently when I had my family over, and you're not really paying attention, and it's just not worth it. So yeah.
We had a dog we were looking after for a few days last summer. It was my friend's mum's dog, and he came to stay. And what we did is, in the weeks leading up, we went for walks together, just to try and get them used to each other. We had the visiting dog, popped in on his lead, and then off he went again. So it's really short and sweet. Initially, we had barriers in place. We only gradually started to change the barriers. We had the visitor dog had his own area where he was safe, and our dogs were somewhere completely different with a door in between. And we sort of gradually gave them more exposure to each other. And that was over about a week. And for those dogs, we certainly didn't get to the stage where I'd have left them alone at all without any supervision, and any time that they did have even in the same room, because because of Hattie in particular, she's quite a guardy sort of type of animal, and she just wasn't comfortable with him coming into her space. She probably would have done eventually, but it would have been a slow process. And that's actually okay. From the dog's point of view, that's fine. That's an acceptable kind of way. It's a normal way to behave for a lot of dogs. So yeah, for me, it's a process. And if it's like when you introduce a new dog, if you have a new dog, you would still do that introduction quite gradually and take your time with it, so everybody felt safe. Because otherwise, if it goes wrong, it can really damage the dog's confidence and outlook on life and all sorts. So yeah. I'd err on the side of caution, and just know that if Bear is in a room on his own, like Barbara said, with some lovely chews and things to do, it's going to be great for him to have a beautiful reset. So he'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, let us know how the weekend went.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to hear what happens. Super duper. Right. Where were we? Victoria.
Hi.
This is one for you, I think, Barbara, initially. Theo and I had a trip to the vet this morning with a mildly itchy ear. I was hoping we'd get away with just being given eardrops, but the vet insisted she must try to check out his inner ear with an otoscope, and he just won't. He's muzzle trained and used to vet visits, in fact. He loves going to the vet, but if a vet approaches him with a pointy thing, he growls, lunges, throws himself around, and basically continues to escalate the situation until the vet gives up on getting near him. I'm relating to him. Vets seem to rely on dogs eventually backing off or shutting down, and Theo doesn't. He just gets wilder and wilder. last time he had a blood test, he had to be completely sedated. Is there any way to train past this? I've had some dogs were fearful at the vet, but never had one that would escalate to the point where nothing can be done with him bar sedation.
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to say I'm really sorry because I know how
Horrible.
benching it is when you have a dog that is so averse to being examined and poked and probed and whatnot. And so the first thing I want to say is when once a dog learns that aggressive behavior will stop the unpleasant thing, then that is what they will do, right? It's just a normal learning thing, you know. I behave like that and then they leave me alone. And it doesn't matter how long we keep trying, if at the end, it's just like with a demand biking, if at the end we then give up because we have to, then the dog realizes, okay, this is how I keep them away, and we can't blame them for that. So and yes, there is definitely a way to train past this. Hopefully Theo hasn't had too many encounters like this, because I know from my own dog that once that negativity towards it is there, it's not impossible to make things better for the dog, but it is definitely harder. It's much easier when we can do these things before they have the horrible experiences. Now, first of all, I say it's wonderful that he's muzzle trained. And it's also wonderful that he loves going to the vet, but it sounds like he doesn't want to be approached with a pointy thing. So that means we
Don't
have
blame him.
no, I don't. But so now there we don't have yet. We will make a plan, but we don't have an interview we can point you towards. We haven't actually had anybody talking about cooperative care. But
Some of the grooming stuff
Alexandra,
actually is similar,
yeah,
isn't
some of the grooming stuff would be
it?
helpful in
Victoria and
principle.
Stephanie.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
good point. And then Alexandra posted in the thread where the question was asked, Alexandra posted a lovely video where she's just demonstrating how she's working through this with her own dogs, you know, putting foundations in place. And I really love her video because it shows how you know, really small steps. So teaching, you know, first teaching the dog a behavior. In this particular case, it's a chin rest on a thing, and then also the dog, you know, putting their face close to Ali's hand. But then you can see how she just like lifts her hand and then rewards, you know, feeds the dog and then moves her hand again and then closer to the ear, and then she fiddles with the ear, and then it's just lifting the hand again. So it's a really gradual step-by-step process. And then when the dog is happy with all these things, then you can start bringing in the pointy thing, and you might even just separately, you know, bring in pointy things and just show them to the dog. Oh, pointy thing, here's a cookie, right? Building a positive association to the thing, and then bring the stuff together. There's also ways you can teach your dog, first of all, to know how to safely restrain your dog, like a hug, you know, like how to hold your dog, and then get them used at home to that, so that we might not make Theo completely comfortable and saying, yes, poke me any way you like. We might not get to that point, but what we can do is we can blow out a whole bunch of candles. So we can get him, like he's used to the muzzle. We can expose him to pointy things at home. We can get him used to being held like you would when you hold him, for the vet. We can make that a game at home and get him used to it. We can bring in a second person, even if it's not the vet. Then we can go and we can do all these things like games at the vet's office. If we can't go in, we can maybe do it in the parking outside. Maybe we can arrange with them. Maybe we can even just pay for an appointment, go in, and the vet is not even in the room. I mean, it depends how. Most veterinary practices are actually pretty, what's the word? Welcoming when people say, I really want to work with my dog on this, right? So just to share, I've got wonderful vets here in town, and I've been taking Nawa there to just practice. They tell me this is the time when there won't be any other animals, and then I'll just go into one of the rooms for 5 minutes and do some of those things with him in that environment. He still, the other day, he had to be injected to be put under for his x-ray. He still had a fit. A few things were different. So it's not a guarantee that things will go super smoothly, but we can blow out some of those candles. We can definitely do that. And then with luck, we can even teach him, to actually tolerate, being injected or poked or have the ear examined. Every dog is a bit different, how far we can get, but we can definitely remove some of that stress for sure, for sure.
And the thing with cooperative care, it's giving the dog more agency, isn't it? To say, actually, I'm not comfortable with this. And even though there are going to be points where the dog is going to have stuff done where they're not comfortable with, if you've kind of got them to a stage where they haven't had to resort, their immediate reaction isn't to resort to the complete Fruit Loopery, then you're still going to have a better outcome. Even if it's something pretty uncomfortable, because it's about, building that. The dog needs to have that trust that nothing terrible is going to happen. It's hard. And it's not a quick process, is it?
No, I mean, it always depends where we're starting, right? What the experiences have been to that point.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to know, I mean, if the dog would respond differently in a different environment. So not in the vet's office. Like you say, is that an option? I don't know. Would that help? I don't know. The other thing that I would look at, I was just thinking about this when you were talking, Barbara, is just I would go, I don't know how, in terms of the dog's muzzle training, is he trained so that he tolerates the muzzle, or is he trained so that he doesn't really care about the muzzle being there? Because even though he's got it on, and with a lot of dogs that have got a muzzle on, it's still filling that bucket. There are still candles from that muzzle. So that's another one to maybe work on and see if you could do some work with that sort of thing as well.
Yeah.
Barbara said just break the rest of it down to the restraint, the pointy thing, the touch, the blah blah.
Yeah, and muzzle stuff can be really fun, right?
Yes.
Stick your nose into this muzzle, now stick your nose into the yogurt cup. Now back into the muzzle, now this, now that. So, and then also, now we put the muzzle on and we hold you. And we do all of this at home. And I'm saying holding because, of course, with a new puppy, like, I mean, I'm also teaching Falky to be completely like, okay, whatever, give me a hug then. But ideally, we want to, we can never anticipate everything, but there's a range of behaviors that we can teach a dog to be properly stationed so that a certain procedure can be done to them, and we can get them used to that. And we can, if we start with them from puppy or without a bad experience, then that can go really quickly. And there might be then at the vet and say, oh, I didn't feel a thing, whatever, right? But if you have a dog that's gone through a bunch of negative experiences already, then I'm not saying that we can't change those around, but like with anything, we've got to have got to realize that it might be more work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Like, I mean, in my case with Noah, I'm nowhere near where I would love to be, you know.
Mm.
But it's ongoing. It's ongoing, and as long as there's progress, it's good.
Yeah, all good.
Great. I think with this all, yeah, so all our questions, and it's we managed to fill an hour, no matter.
I know we do well, don't we? Well, hopefully we'll
I
catch.
haven't kept an eye on the comments, have you? You probably did.
Not really, no, to be honest with you. Anne put a little follow-up to her question saying it's tricky because she's on holiday with friends and 12 and 16-year-old dogs, so she's thinking about the cafe and restaurant thing. And I've been in that situation too, Anne. And I take the for sort of if it's evening, if I can. For some dogs, just that environment isn't the right place for them. So, get a takeaway or something like that, maybe sit outside, those kind of things. I know it's not necessarily ideally what you want, but at this stage with your dog, there isn't something that's just going to fix them when they're in a cafe or a restaurant. That's not going to happen. So we still need to put into place some sort of management, and if as long as it's not too hot, having your dog chilling out in the car, or if you're away somewhere that your dog can stay, whether in the house or the place where you're staying, then some places will do that. So yeah, I wouldn't just try and you can try, like Barbara said before, something like a chew or a bone or something, see if that will work. It may, and hopefully it will. For some dogs, that will be too much. It will still be too much. And once that, like you say, if you're eating a full meal, well, the dog will finish the chew and then you're back to square one, aren't you?
Yeah. So, and another thing, just to mention there, lots of people expect that a dog needs to be able to go into a cafe or a restaurant, lie under the table or next to the chair, just muscle and be a good dog. Right? I'm not saying that you do. I'm just saying that is sort of an expectation that is out in the world, that is sort of the ideal, right? This is what everybody aspires to. And it's a little bit like, when I grew up, the expectation was children should be seen but not heard, kind of a thing. My mom loved to take us along to these boring family dinners and things like that because we were so well behaved and we sat there in our little outfits. But we didn't enjoy it. It was really hard. And we would always get into trouble because sooner or later can we go outside and play? And then we'd be outside and ruin our outfits or something. So I'm bringing that up because just as times have changed, and now, when somebody has small children and they take them to restaurants, the expectations are different. We take them to child-friendly restaurants, or we bring things, coloring books or something for them so they can actually have a good time. So then the grown-ups can have a good time, right? So similarly, we need to understand, what that experience is like for our dogs, and therefore not be shy to make arrangements in such a way that they can be at their best behavior. And if that, for example, means moving some extra chairs around to create a bit of a barrier and everybody puts their jackets on the backs of those chairs, that could be a nice trick, right? And choosing the places you go really carefully. And when I go and take my dogs, I only take one at a time. I don't take them both. And I pick the restaurant carefully. I always go to the same one. I just have one favorite one. But and I choose a corner table, right? And then I bring my dog's bed the puppy's bed along, or a blankie. This is a lovely restaurant. They can actually allow to be on the beach, and the thingies have a cushion. But it doesn't matter. You want to make sure that you set up, that the dog feels safe and can chill. And if the dog can't, then like Julia said, for some dogs it's just too much. They can't do that yet.
Yeah. Now, Andrew's asked how long is a long-lasting chew and what product is recommended? Well, long-lasting really depends on you, really. For me, I'd be thinking I want a chew that my dog is going to sit and quietly get on with for sort of 15, 20 minutes. That to me is a long-lasting chew. Now, you mentioned about yak chews, and they are example of a long-lasting chew. But there are plenty of other things out there. And what's long lasting for one dog might not be long lasting for another. I look at things like, lots of natural chews because we know how important the nutrition is to our dogs. So I would be looking at things like, I don't know what you can get over there. I'm sure it's similar, but pig's ears, cow's ears, lots of ears, buffalo ears, but think beef muscle chews, tracheas. Basically, there are places you can get dried spare parts of animals, which last various different amounts of time. And that's what I use. It's great for their teeth as well. And it's a good exercise to have a good chew too. So yeah, that's what I use. What have I
Yeah.
covered at the moment? The moment we've got pig's noses. We've got, sorry, Barbara's a vegan. We've got rabbit ears. We've got bull's pizzles. Probably best
Yeah.
to mention what they are, although I find
Okay, well, I don't know how long they last. I've never tried them. I just know that a rabbit paw or a rabbit ear in this house with my dogs, I mean,
2 seconds.
doesn't, yeah.
Yeah. The rabbit
So,
ears are the kind of the little snacky ones. I've got beef scalp as well. They last a lot longer. They're
yeah. So
phenomenal.
I like bones, meaty bones a lot.
Yeah, meaty bones like your marrow bones and
And,
beef ribs,
mm,
stuff like that.
yeah, and knuckle bones, right? And then topples are great. You can stuff them with yummy stuff and freeze them beforehand and then
Yeah.
take them along in your handbag. I've got wonderful things in my handbag, I tell you.
I've
Yeah.
just got really smelly things, like duck
Right.
nets.
And then before we go, I just wanted to, there were some nice things said in the comments here. Leah said, I really appreciate how you continue to remind us of the importance of reset and downtime for our dogs. Thank you, Leah.
And
So
for us, let's remember we need downtime too.
yeah, because that's what Andrea says. Yeah, I agree. I need these reminders about reset, relaxation time, and avoiding rather than flooding while working on relationship and skills. Misread.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's so true, Andrea. It's so
absolutely
true.
true.
And management is so cool because it's like a miracle. You can make things better almost instantly for
Yeah,
yourself, you know.
absolutely. Lovely.
Great. That was lovely. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
We'll see
And
you on Thursday next week, I think.
oh yeah. Right.
We'll see you then.
Okay. See you then.
Bye bye.
Hello. Bye.